Mr. Kram, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chair. My questions will be directed to Mr. Giguere and Mr. Perry. So, what I find so tragic about the MAX 8 certification process is that as far back as 2016, Transport Canada test pilots had questions about the plane's behavior related to speed and pitch. And these pilots didn't know it at the time, but these strange behaviors that they were observing were related to the flawed MCAS system. And so naturally the pilots had questions and they wrote these questions down on a concern paper that was sent to Boeing. And tragically and inexplicably, the certification process for the MAX 8 was approved without having received answers to all of the Transport Canada questions. And so my question to Mr. Giguere and Mr. Perry, and I really want to hear your perspective because you're the ones who fly the planes. Should Transport Canada continue the practice of approving certifications for airplanes before having received answers to all of its questions from the manufacturer?
Gentlemen?
I can comment just however only briefly, as I'm not familiar with the concern letter specifically, although I do know that letters of concern are normal and they don't necessarily indicate a high degree of risk versus a low degree of risk. So this process isn't necessarily enough to really understand what is being highlighted or what needs addressing. But of course, we all, as pilots, want aircraft to be, any outstanding issues. We absolutely stand for them to be addressed, properly by the manufacturer and the regulator. That's absolutely something we would support. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I could speak. Yes, as I said in my comments, certainly we believe that we have the capability in Canada. We have an extraordinarily high level of capability, and that the certification process is not one that should be deferred to another authority. And to your question specifically, obviously, if Canada is having a review and a certification process of its own, all those questions would have to be asked before the aircraft is returned to service, or in case of a new aircraft certified.
Thank you, Mr. Giguere. Thank you, Mr. Perry. Mr. Kram?
Okay, thank you. I have another Transport Canada concern paper here dated November 22nd, 2018. I'd like to read a brief quote from this concern paper. It says, "Please note that in order to meet its delivery commitments to the Canadian operators, Boeing has requested Transport Canada to issue its 737-8 MAX ATC in June 2017. To avoid delays to our operators, Transport Canada will review and discuss FAA position on this concern paper during its upcoming 737-9 validation activities. Therefore, this concern paper will remain open when the 737-8 MAX ATC is issued by Transport Canada." So I find it very concerning that Boeing's sales targets and sales deadlines are making their way into a Transport Canada certification document. And again, to Mr. Giguere and Mr. Perry, how concerned are you that the Transport Canada certification process is being driven by Boeing's sales targets and not the safety of the actual aircraft?
We'll start off with Mr. Giguere. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. As I said in my comments, I believe that we have the absolute expertise. We've got a world-class expertise to do an independent certification here in Canada of not only the 737 MAX, but other aircraft and future aircraft. So we would support that view. We believe that frontline pilots should be involved in the process, who have the experience and the knowledge and the wide breadth of different types that that could be added to the process. And we believe that that is something that should happen going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Further comment?
Yes, of course, I echo Mr. Giguere's comments, but also will add that, of course, as airline pilots, we place the safety of the public and the safety of everyone on board and at the absolute highest level. And so we believe that safety and considerations for safety are the most important considerations of all, and we would like to see those considerations, be understood by Transport Canada and anybody certifying an airplane. And we do believe that as Mr. Giguere said, that this is something that Canon should be done with. Canon should be done with our breadth of expertise here in Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Mr. Giguere, quick question. I'm sorry, Mr. Kram, quick question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And so my last question is, where do you feel Canada made its biggest mistakes? Was it in the initial certification of the MAX 8, or was it delays in grounding the plane after the first crash, or was it delays in grounding the plane after the second crash?
Thank you, Mr. Kram. Mr. Giguere?
I think it's a complex process, and I don't think we've in aviation, you look towards learning from events and experiences and processes. That's what our goal always is. As Captain Perry has said, we place the importance of safety at the top of the list in terms of the passengers, the crew, and the aircraft, and that is something that won't change. So learning from events that have happened is a primary goal. Transparency and knowledge is what we look for as we move forward, and that's why we're pleased with this process, and as I've said in my comments to this point, pleased with the recertification line that's been happening and the slow, thoughtful method to get the aircraft to a point where it could be determined to be airworthy and certified again in Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Giguere.